We have New York City today entering phase one of reopening its economy. This comes as the number of coronavirus cases nationwide continues to climb, and now confirmed cases are inching closer to 2 million. Now, for more on this, I want to bring in Barry Datlof. He's responsible for medical business development and commercialization for the Army Medical Research and Development Command. Barry, great to have you with us. We're also joined by Yahoo Finance's Anjali Kemlani as well. And Barry, let's just start off with where we stand with vaccines, because that's been the focus lately, just the potential timing of these vaccines and the likelihood that we are going to get one. I know the military is involved with finding a vaccine. So talk to us about the military's involvement with this and where we stand right now in the process.
Absolutely. If you look at the vaccines historically, the military has had to be involved in almost every vaccine that's been developed. And that's in part because our military personnel are deployed worldwide. And even if malaria might not be a big thing in the US at the moment, Ebola, Zika, all of those pathogens still pose a risk to the warfighter. And so the US Army's Medical Research and Development Command, headquartered in Fort Detrick, Maryland, but with laboratories truly worldwide as well as throughout the United States, has always focused on prevention and the ability to keep the warfighter safe, which means that we actually have decades worth of experience in both developing, testing, producing these types of vaccines. Our previous work is almost always in collaboration either with other foreign governments, companies, as well as particularly with BARDA and NIH through the HHS world. So if you look at protecting the forces so that they're able and available, it's really important that we foresee the things that are coming. And when things were viewed as threats, as MERS and other viral threats around the world were previously, we have the animal models already set up for it. We actually have production facilities at the ready. And this was, as everybody's noted previously, one of the quickest ramp-ups from sequence the genome of a pathogen to actually getting stuff into humans. So to be an optimist, I got to admit, it's good to have this many simultaneous paths to a vaccine, not to mention the therapeutics, which we can discuss later.
Barry, Anjali here. Thanks so much. And when we're looking at, the current environment, it's very different from when all the other vaccines were being produced. So, there have been discussions about nationalism, but you're talking about working with other governments and with companies that are global. So how does that all factor into what we're having these discussions about right now?
Absolutely. The proverbial "it takes a village" means that it literally requires us to be in country for many of the pathogens that we're looking at, particularly when things start overseas and then move across the globe. The epidemiology is critical as you're tracking its movement. But if you also look at things like strain specificity and strain drift, somebody's got to pay attention, because the West Coast and the East Coast of the United States could have very different imported strains. The military is used to this because, of course, when you look overseas, it's not where you are today, but it's ultimately where you are tomorrow. And the type of government partnerships that are most effective are with folks who have a stake in the game. It's the foreign governments. We collaborate with many of our foreign military medical folks, particularly with the allies who have fought side by side with us. Because at the end of the day, we're going to actually field the technology not only to our warfighter, but to those standing next to us. So we work heavily throughout the globe with places that can conduct clinical trials with pathogens that may not be endemic in the United States in the beginning of an epidemic or pandemic. And then we ultimately have to have enough patients to test. Clinical trials, as you know, are very expensive. And so being able to literally do a multinational clinical trial gives you a much better semblance of long-term success. Short-term, you may have one strain here and one strain there. But as we look at polyvalent, meaning being able to recognize multiple epitopes on the virus. When you look at that capability, you really want to knock out as much as you humanly can with one vaccine. Even if that vaccine has to change each year, you really want to have the best literal shot at it, because people don't want to come back for 3 vaccines in a given year, but they will come back for mutating vaccines over time.
I was going to ask you a question, Barbara. I'm going to cede my time back to Senator Kamlani.
Thank you, Andy. To follow up on that, on the treatments front, I'm assuming that you have a lot of conversations with some of these even smaller biotechs, and that's one sort of avenue that they have to come to the forefront at a time like this when there's so much pressure. So what is it that you're able to do, and what are you looking for in these smaller biotechs?
To say that the phone has been ringing off the hook, even if we're teleworking, most definitely the case. Immediately, the U.S. Army Medical Research and Development Command had to set up an intake evaluation process. And we sort of categorized things into a number of baskets. Clearly, our primary mission right now is protecting the warfighter, but what's good for the warfighter is good for civilians as well. Therapeutics are faster if you can repurpose something that's already out there. Vaccines are longer, but provide longer protection and broader protection. But we also have to deal with things like medical treatment of not only the warfighter, but civilians. And so we develop some technologies in-house. Some technologies come to us from companies, and some are truly joint projects that have been ongoing for years. We're literally always in the market for a better mousetrap. So when a company comes in and they've got something, it's always a little bit shiny and new, but navigating the bureaucracy, we apologize for the fact that there is one, but there are so many doors in that what we're really trying to do is be Sherpas. Our office is the tech transfer office that out-licenses the technologies, but because we're usually at Bio in San Diego this time of year, we are approached by companies both then, previously, in the future, as well as now, just by email with, we've got something that we think the military could use. And what we try to do is fit that to the specific subordinate laboratory, Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, the U.S. Army Medical Research of Infectious Disease, and get the subject matter experts there aligned with the evaluation. And that could either be previous data that's available, testing it in our hands because we have specialized medical capabilities. The largeness of some of these trials will really require international patients. Just the animal models and some of the specialty capabilities in things like aerobiology, where misting and actual viral load need to be determined. These are all things that the Army makes available to companies who wish to collaborate with us in the evaluation of their technology. That said, the list just keeps growing, and there has to be a down select. And we're sanguine about that because you can't do everything simultaneously. Some of it has to be sequential. And we've ourselves have to down select the things that we wish to field to the warfighter, not only within the Army, but within the Navy, Air Force, and other DoD components, DHA included in our medical treatment facilities. So it's always a mix.
It is. All right, Barry Datlof, great to have you on with U.S. Army Medical R&D. We really appreciate your perspective. Thanks so much for taking the time this afternoon.
My pleasure.